Today I'm announcing that if Trudeau does not declare today an end to his forthcoming tax increases on food, gas, and heat, that we will introduce a motion of non-confidence in the Prime Minister. It will read that the House declare non-confidence in the Prime Minister and his costly government for increasing the carbon tax by 23% on April 1st as part of his plan to quadruple the tax while Canadians cannot afford to eat, heat, and house themselves, and call for the House to be dissolved so Canadians can vote in a carbon tax election.
Well, this week is going to get a little bit interesting now, isn't it? Now, Pierre Poilievre he made this announcement today, early this morning, so I'm just getting to it now after a day of work. But hey, let's get into this. So there's a few things. I'm going to get into the media response for this, or the response to this anyway. I wanted to highlight a few of the points that he made in his speech here. Let's just get into it.
What's more, it is fundamentally unjust that a man that drove a truck for a half a century bringing the essentials to our kitchen tables cannot put food on his kitchen table. But that is the tragic reality after 8 years of Justin Trudeau and the NDP. Printing $600 billion of cash caused a massive inflationary crisis that continues to this day. A crisis that has driven food prices up faster than at any time in 40 years, that has sent 2 million people every month to a food bank, including 50 at the Gagetown base. 50 members of our armed forces can't feed themselves.
That is just
1
insane.
in 10 Torontonians are now going to a food bank. Unimaginable numbers. Last week, Montreal police had to be called in because people were literally fighting over the scraps of food that were left at one of their food banks. There's been a 600% increase in demand for the University of Western Ontario's food centre.
Okay, it goes on and on and on of just how much worse Canada is off because of this past 8 years of Justin Trudeau. I mean, he's saying that it's because of Justin Trudeau. I don't see any other reason. We were doing quite well economically before he got in with his new policies of trust that the budgets are going to balance themselves. Well, that never worked out. And we printed off crazy amounts of money, and now we're suffering the consequences of it. He continued.
They're pouring more fuel on the inflationary flames with a April Fool's Day carbon tax of 23%. A 23% increase on your gas, your heat, and your groceries, because if you tax the farmer who makes the food, the trucker who ships the food, you tax all who buy the food. And now we know that it was all a lie when Trudeau said you get back more in rebates. We have the numbers from the parliamentary budget officers who says, and I quote, this is $2,943 for the $2,943 for the average Alberta family. That's $900 more than they get back in rebates. Saskatchewan families, on average, $2,618. That's $525 more than they get back in rebates. $1,750 for Manitoba, $502 more than they get back in rebates. $1,674 for Ontario, that's $627 more than they get back. Nova Scotia, $1,500 more in carbon tax, $1,500 in carbon tax, $500 more than they get back.
I think you get the idea. People are paying this carbon tax and they're not getting back with this, what they call it, a carbon rebate now. Because we need a rebate on the whole idea of this concept. And not only that, they're about to put it up by 23%, I believe is the figure, that it's going to go up automatically on April 1st. And what he's asking here is call it off. Actually, he's telling him now at this point, call it off, call off the increases, and save Canadians, or there's going to be a call of non-confidence. Now, of course, is this going to fly? Is it going to pass? Well, probably not. Probably not. It's probably not going to go through. Why is he doing it now? Why is he doing it now and he's not doing it down the road? I mean, there's going to be a vote of non-confidence essentially with the next budget. It's going to happen in a couple of months here. It's been rumored that the NDP might want to get an out because of some what they call in the U.S. gerrymandering. It's not going to be up to politicians to decide this, but some of the division lines for the districts or for the ridings is going to change, and some seats are going to move around, and it may be advantageous for the NDP to actually go into an election sooner than later. I was talking about this with Northern Perspective on my recent video, actually. Go check that out. I'll leave a link up in the corner here where we discuss that actually at length. But it's amazing right now when you have the opposition leader coming out and saying, we're putting this on the table. We're putting this on the table that we're going to go for a vote of no confidence in this government. What does the media have to say about it? Well, just have a listen.
A real intensification in rhetoric from Pierre Poilievre. He literally described Canada today as, quote unquote, a hell we could not have imagined 8 years ago. He chided the national media for, underestimating how bad it would get here in Canada, for suggesting that their warnings as an opposition party about how bleak things would become under Trudeau were being dismissed, and that now he's been proven correct. This is a Trump-style brand of rhetoric. This is the American carnage speech that we saw from Trump when he took his inaugural address. And
he's Donald Trump, everybody. This is the Canadian media. This is the best they've got, really. When he's coming forward with some genuine, real grievances that Canadians have across the country. We are across the country have these grievances. They're not fake. They're not made up. What do you got? What do you got? Trump. You know what Trump did? He colluded with Russia. Oh, wait, he didn't. This is crazy. It's absolutely insane, the rhetoric that's coming out of the media.
Conservatives hate that comparison. They loathe that comparison. They label it hysterical. But when you're going to use that kind of burned field, burned ground metaphor, when you're going to say that this is a hellscape that we've not seen in 8 years, I mean, you really are inviting the comparison to the over-the-top, extreme, and intense rhetoric that we see from Trump on a daily basis.
Oh, I wish it wasn't actually the case. I wish it wasn't that Canada is actually gone that horribly. Have a listen to this.
What the hell is going on in Canada right now? I am home visiting my parents this weekend for the holidays. I live in the West Village in New York City, the highest cost of living yuppie area ever in the history of the United States. I am never shocked when I get a dinner bill. I'm never shocked when I go on vacation. Nothing phases me. I've traveled all over the world. Tell me why I come home to Newmarket, Ontario, the suburbs of Toronto, and I'm shocked at the cost of living here. How are Canadian people making it work? Everybody involved with the economy right now needs to be fired immediately. We need to contact the UN and get a binding resolution here. Something sinister is going on in Canada, and I'm determined to get to the bottom of it.
Oh, but it's just rhetoric, right? It's just rhetoric, Mr. News Pundit guy. This is incredible. Now, I heard some other pundits saying that, yeah, it probably isn't going to pass, and they're probably right about that. But this is the case. So they had their chance on the floor of Parliament today for Trudeau to walk it back. Did he walk it back? Well,
Parliamentary Budget Officer's report lays out clearly that 8 out of 10 Canadian families across the country where the price on pollution applies get more money back.
I'm going to read again the testimony from the March 18th appearance of the Parliamentary Budget Officer. Once you factor in the rebate, but also the economic impacts, the majority of households will see a negative impact as a result of the carbon tax. End quote. The Prime Minister plans to make this problem worse with a carbon tax hike on heat, on homes, on fuel, on food. We will not stand for it. So once again, which will it be? Will he spike the hike, or will we have a carbon tax election?
What will it be, Mr. Speaker? It will be that Canadians get more money with the Canada carbon rebate.
I mean, he was just told that. He's just told. It's proven majority of Canadians will not. It's absolutely correct. And
the Parliamentary Budget Officer testified that the majority of households will pay more in carbon taxes than they will get back in rebates. There is a table showing that every single province in which this tax applies, the middle class.
they opposed him pulling out the table. Hey, here's some evidence for why it's not going to work. Whoa, jeers from the crowd. It's unbelievable.
Class families pay vastly more than they get back, and Canadians know it because under this Prime Minister, they've seen their food, their fuel, their homes, their heating go through the roof. But why don't we just end the debate and let Canadians decide and have a carbon tax election?
And that's precisely where it's going to go. We're going to go to a carbon tax election. Now, I love this little quote here. This is from Glenda M on Twitter. The unelected, undemocratic coalition is about to be totally exposed. 70% of Canadians oppose the carbon tax. So if the NDP side with Trudeau on Pierre Poilievre's no confidence vote, that will be the final confirmation of who they work for. And it's not us. Trust me, it's not us. It's an excellent graphic. I'm unequivocally opposed to any sort of coalition. That was Trudeau. So they, instead of a coalition, they made it a non-confidence, a confidence and supply agreement. And it's just Jagmeet Singh carrying Trudeau through this until 2025, June of 2025, unless there's a call of non-confidence. And well, we all know where it's going to go from there. But the question is, Will the taxing continue until weather improves? Yeah, that's right. The old meme there. Is that going to happen? Well, what does Guy Beau have to say about that?
Probably by 2060, more or less. So 1987 to 2060. That's the kind of time frame we're looking at to tackle an issue like climate change.
Wow, it's going to go all the way to 2060. Unbelievable. Guy Beau says he doesn't monitor how carbon taxes lower Canada's emissions. He doesn't even check that. Nobody's running any science in this trust the science, but which are only 1.4% of global emissions, by the way. But he figures that in 30 to 40 years, we might see lower emissions. By then, we'll have paid over $1 trillion in carbon taxes, says Nick Leaf on Twitter. And also, speaking of Jagmeet Singh, Jordan Peterson recently had an interview with Pierre Poilievre, and this is what came out of that.
What do you think about Mr. Singh?
Well, he lacks a raison d'etre, right? Why does he exist? You've already got an NDP prime minister, a socialist prime minister in Justin Trudeau. So that means the Socialist Party has to try to figure out what to do with itself. So far, Jagmeet has said, well, he'll just support Trudeau in a coalition. And the problem is when you go back to the electorate, people are going to say, well, you're part of the same problem. Like I had a gentleman I was in Chambly in Quebec, lifelong NDP supporter, very upset with how life is. The guy was telling me he's had to reduce his diet to one meal a day because food is so expensive. And he was voting for the NDP until he saw the NDP formed a coalition with Trudeau, the guy who's caused all the misery. So it's going to be very hard for Jagmeet to go to the people and claim that he represents anything other than the Trudeaupian status quo. And I think that in the next election, people will be looking for a drastic departure from Trudeau. So they'll be looking for the anti-Trudeau.
And so what do you think of him on the personal front? I mean, one of the things that's really struck me about Singh, apart from his unconditional support for Trudeau and exactly...
I'll leave a link in the description down below. It went on for a little while as Jordan gave his explainer for asking the question. But definitely go check that in the link in the description down below. But I'd love to hear from you guys. What do you think about this whole vote of no confidence that's been threatened? Obviously, Trudeau didn't take the ploy. He hasn't backed off from the carbon tax. I don't think he can at this point. He's doubled down so many times, and if he backs off even a little bit on the carbon tax like he did with Atlantic Canada only months ago, backing off for Liberal voters, of course, if he backs off any more, it just puts a big stain on the whole carbon tax and how it doesn't work, and it's a political tool anyway. So now he's kind of forced his hand. He's got to double down, and the NDP now are either going to be in bed with Trudeau and show that, or they'll back off and they'll have some sort of inkling of possibly even winning seats in the next election with their declining popularity. Anyway, leave a comment in the comment section down below. Let me know what you think, and we'll see you in the next one. Keep on trekking.